Good afternoon. It is Sunday, September 18th, and this is a weird time and day, and we're just here to hang out, basically. My name is ill-esha, and this is ILBC, and we've got a lot of fun people in the books for you today. We have our guests, as always, the mighty Nathaniel Wyvern. Hello, hello. How are you doing today? Good? Nice. We have our regular favorite, Bako Bibizo, on my above right, my left, stage left, front house. He's on the top right of the screen. Twitch right. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo. I don't know if somebody doesn't have headphones on, but hopefully that's just, I think it might be echoing in a couple of yours. We also have,
I got my headphones on.
We also have Nick Beeman, and we have Samurai. I would love to just have a little intro. Maybe start with you, Bako.
Yeah, my name's Bako Bibizo. I'm a bedroom producer. I make terrible music, but the only way to get good at it is to make lots of it. So yeah, I've been on here a couple times. I have a pretty good ear for being able to pick stuff out, so I tend to ramble a lot in chat during the feedback requests. So hopefully I don't annoy everybody.
Nick, we often have you in the chat, but we have not had you on camera before with me. How are you doing? Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm doing great, thanks. Well, I've been a bedroom producer since like the 90s, but I've been on and off, and yeah, I've also been singing since a kid. So I tend to produce my own music and sing both for my own music and also for other people.
Nice. And Samurai, thanks for coming. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm still a kid, and I've been bedroom producing for about 8 months, and my music is horrible, but I want to make it better.
Very honest. Super glad to have all of you on here today. So yeah, we're gonna do a little bit of feedback. This is a bit of a mixed bag, and to be honest, you know, we've been having these competitions. We've been having such crazy remote stuff going on, and during that time, I'm always under a lot of pressure, and I can't explore new and fun things. So today, we're actually just hanging out. We might even try and play with some interactive visuals, but I just wanted to see my lovely friends and chat and see how things are going. So we have a track from Samurai themselves, so this is a good way for us to check out your music. And Natty, if you want to like help me figure out where that echo is coming from, it's gonna drive me nuts. But Samurai, you gave us 2 links. What are those 2 different songs? Oh,
Did I?
Oh, you know what? Never mind.
Sorry.
I'm dumb. Usually Natty looks at the queue. Sorry, these are 2 people. Here's the Samurai link. General feedback, and since you're here, why don't you tell us sort of like what are you looking to improve in your music? Like, what do you most want us to look at here?
I just want all the sounds to blend together a lot more, specifically, and I just want it to sound good and not like there's something muddy in it, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so let's check out your track, and hopefully we will figure out this echo by the time I get right, so this is our very own samurai to start off the feedback. And look, I mean, I think you got all your ideas in place, you know? Like, I hear a cohesive arrangement, I hear a cohesive idea. I think, it's just a case of, like you were saying, getting your sounds to blend together. So I think learning EQ is going to be like the biggest. Like, EQ is something that is just so universal and you never stop learning. And what I hear immediately is just a lot of muddiness, which means that, you know, you have to go through and play detective, right? You have to go through and scrub with like notches and other tools to find that rogue frequency in your synth, for instance, that might be clouding up your bass and getting in the way. So I think the first part is just going to be I call it the surgeon or the magnifying glass. You go through and you sweep around with EQs and you're like, this doesn't need to be there. So the easiest thing to do is to sort of EQ like the low end off if it's not a kick or a bass, and keep going up, 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 up. Oh, I can hear it. Now I can pull it back. But a lot of the time there'll be this like low end noise that you don't even know is there. Nick, do you have some EQing tips?
Well, that's basically it, what you said. But I would definitely look into the frequencies of your synths. The lead synth sounds very muddy, and I think it has to do that you haven't gone through the low frequencies of it to remove it and make it sound more crispy. Other than that, I would check out the drums too, of course. I think you have posted some really good tip before, ill-esha, about the different frequencies ranges of each instruments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you have the link up, but it's very helpful if you want to start out
Yes.
with the EQing.
Yeah, I do. I will throw that up while we get some other feedback. But yeah, comparison, and then of course people always say, you know, reference tracks.
Yeah, reference tracks is also very nice. Listen to a lot of other music, especially music that you are into or what you want to create, and then try to recreate it.
Yeah, so here it is. It's a mirror. So I always say to people, this is the sketchiest looking link, alexey.nl/EQ, but it's just because this guy put something up that is not up anymore, and it allows you to sort of roll over. So here's this chart, and you can look at like the echo just stopped. I don't know who just muted or something, but whoever you are, you're the echo source. You can see the fundamental of the frequency. You can see the overtones, and you can kind of see like where things might be clashing. And there's also these words like warmth, fullness, boom, punch. Nathaniel, how did you? I've watched you transform over the last like 5 years into like a much sharper mixing engineer and producer. Like, do you have some special tips for Samurai? And you're muted, and it's not me for once. He's looking very busy. All right.
I can add something.
Yeah, please do.
While I'm at it.
Please do.
Something I have to say is that you have to trust your ears. Always listen to if you listen to another track and see how they made it sound like that, then try to just listen in what have they done to make it sound like that, and then you can just play around with the frequencies to see if you can reach that type of sound just by mixturing. Sometimes if you just experiment, that's when you reach the best results, to be honest.
Totally. Yeah, Natty looks very intense. Baco, any tips from you?
So when I was learning EQ, I found the best thing to do, and I think this is true with pretty much any plugin that you're learning or any other, I don't know, I do this pretty much with any skill that I'm learning, is that I just do wild and crazy things, but I always make sure that I'm only doing one thing at a time so I can figure out what that wild and crazy thing is doing. So it's good to go through and like, I would definitely take a look at your lead synth. I think there's also some top end of your bass that is bleeding through. There's like a weird resonance that's happening like somewhere in like the 1000 range. And what you need to do is just like make like a really drastic cut and just start swinging it around and seeing like, does this sound normal? Does this sound okay? And you'll find a spot where like you'll make this huge cut and then everything sort of clears out. and you'd be like, oh, okay, that's where that is with this, and then just try and remember the like reference the type of sound that it is, because usually it's like a type of sound. Like there's like metal sharp sounds are usually around like 1200 and like 9000, and like you'll sort of start building this little map of like, oh, I know what that sound is, and I'll hear where the cut needs to be. I'm not a super big fan of like doing the sweeping with where you like sweep with the high band, where you're giving it a bunch of gain, because pretty much everything sounds crappy when you give it resonance. So you might be cutting things you don't need to, but it is definitely another option.
Yeah, agreed. Natty, can you hear us? We've lost him. Looks so intense. He was so impressed by your track that he's just completely lost for words. I'm not even sure if he's actually still. Oh, I see a hand move. We may have some life from him yet. Well, let's just keep going for fun's sake. Go, Natty. So I'm definitely discovering.
Oh, he's trying to talk.
He's trying to talk? Nathaniel.
I don't know why, but everything just keeps collapsing in on itself. I mean, different computer means different audio problems. Very sorry about that.
It's okay. It's okay. Did you have any wisdom to share with us?
I mean, for me, the biggest thing is just referencing on lots of different devices. I mean, I reference on my phone. I'll go and take it through to the kitchen and have something on, or I'll change headphones since I've got a few different sets kicking about, or I'll play it on my sound bar, which is, none of these are necessarily good environments, but they give me a better idea of what's wrong with the mix, because if it doesn't sound at least close to how I've intended it to sound, then obviously the mix down is sucky, and it usually helps emphasize really bad spots.
When I'm doing my mix down, I slap it in mono and put a high pass filter on it at like 80 and just mix from there. And then I'll forget that it will be in that state, and then I'll submit it to Feedback and Friends, and everyone's like, it's really mono. But then I'll remember to turn it off and be like, oh wow, it sounds so much better.
Oops. Well, I'm gonna try. This is an experimental stream, by the way, so I may be switching some things. I'm gonna just switch a setting of mine, so do not panic to my chat room. I'm gonna be back in like half a second, so let me just keep talking while I do that. But I want to just tell you all who's listening, we have a really cool ILBC final event coming up.
By the way,
I'm really stoked about this. It's going to be in Barcelona on the 29th of September at 9:30 p.m. CET, and you can see that we have the flyer up there. So hopefully, the only thing is that when I do it like this, oh yeah, everyone's back. Perfect. All right, we're going to try the next person, which is Lost Signal. Not looking for any specific feedback, I think just in general. So let us check out Lost Signal.
Don't let him see me breaking. Don't let him see me cry. Don't let him see me faking this pretty little smile. Secrets inside of me. Quiet. Swallow my tears. Never see me like this. Don't let him see me. Don't let him see me. Don't let him see me. His pretty little smile.
Oh, that was a very abrupt. I was like just getting started on that. I'm like, yeah, that was, I mean, to me that sounds finished. I don't know. What do y'all think?
I mean, other than the actual song just sort of stopping, the mix sounded pretty good there.
Yeah, it was a little.
Mix sound was. Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
No, that was just a very abrupt.
The mix down sounds pretty good. I think the top end has a little bit too much to it. I had to like turn down my volume. I also could tell that you mastered it to like -4, which is like hella loud. But very, very, very clean master for if you got it down that low. So I am impressed with the level of compression and control you have there. What I do is I'll usually do 3 masters. I'll do one at like -14, which is recommended, then one at like -8, and then if I really want to push it down to like -6 or -4, then I'll do that. And then I'll level match them all, and then I'll pick the one that sounds the best. So I think there might be an opportunity where like the -8 one might be a little bit better, but I wouldn't be able to tell without checking. But good job on the mastering, that's for sure.
I mean, I think it also depends on what plugin chain you're using as well to master, because there's a fair number of limiters out there, especially if you're using something like, I don't know, let's call it the Fruity limiter for being a big culprit for this one, that color the sound a lot and make it so it actually does sound really kind of a little bit gritty and grimy when you reach that sort of volume.
Yeah.
Pretty much any limiter is going to color it after you get down below -10. It doesn't. They're just like, which ones do you like the color of is sort of the decision at that point.
Absolutely. Samurai, what'd you think of that track?
Since I'm not a very good producer, I can only say things I liked. I really liked the bass, how it really resonated in my headphones. That made me feel very happy, so you did a very good job there.
Well, don't be afraid, because here's the thing that I actually learned from this lecture that I keep referencing by Susan Rogers, who's a fantastic engineer, that listeners and producers, right? There's ways that we process music, and there's input and output. And most of the time producers are on output mode. We're just outputting, and we forget that we need to also be on input mode. We need to listen, we need to process, we need to enjoy. And I know that this happens to me personally. Like if I spend too much time in the studio and I ignore like everything going on, I used to do that because I thought this is the right thing to do. Like I don't want to sound like anyone else. I need to like not dirty the purity of my studio session, which is actually BS.
Terrible idea.
It's totally a terrible idea, and it just comes from wanting to be original and being very precious about it, and being like 20-something years old, which is how old I was when I had this philosophy. But I really finally learned that, oh my gosh, reference tracks, you learn so much. Listening in general, you learn so much. So now I'm really trying to just spend more time listening. I think that that's super important.
Especially things outside of your genre.
Especially.
I find it interesting as well. You're not the only one that I've heard that has that mindset or has had that mindset.
Which that can't spoil your, like, or sully your vision or whatever, and being precious about like being original.
Well, I mean, yeah, just the idea of not listening to music while you're in your studio or whatever, or not listening to it on the same week that you go out and record something. Like, why? When I thought music's meant to be something that's, enjoyable, both in the making and the consumption of. I mean, for me at least, that's always been the approach I've taken of, well, I love listening to music, so why would I stop?
Yeah, no, I do too, but I think it becomes like time also that you spend. Like you get to the point where you're just like, I have a job, or like, and I have kids, or whatever it is that you have, and then you also have your music making. So sometimes you get, like for me, when I spent 12 hours a day producing, that was like my time for listening. But I think the point is it's still valuable, no matter how little time you feel you have, to use that time, like that is, listening is sacred.
And also just to decompress and like not be like so, I don't know, everyone takes everything so seriously, and everyone thinks that they're going to be the next big famous thing. One of the best things that I've ever learned for myself in terms of learning skills, and as a person, I'm like 37 now, and in the last 7 years I've learned how to draw, gotten things into art shows. I've just learned how to do music production this year. I've learned multiple programming languages. I've learned how to do game development, UX design, web development, like all these different skills. The best thing that I learned was to A, don't think that you're ever going to make money at it. Do it because you like to do it. And B, just be crappy at it and don't worry about it. Don't be precious. Don't think that you're going to make the next big thing, especially not in the first couple things that you make, because if you spend your entire time making your magnum opus, you never actually learn how to do anything.
Totally.
Yeah, that's very, very good points, and I have to agree with you, because I think it took me around maybe 100 or maybe 150 tracks before I actually made anything worth that I thought was good. And the thing is, people can say that, well, some have talent, and sure, they can produce something really good after like 2 or 3 tracks, but most people, they struggle in the beginning, especially with the mixing part and arrangement and everything. If you haven't gone to school and studied music theory and stuff like that before, then it could be a bit of a stepping stone to start producing music. So I think, well, like you said, just have fun and enjoy what you do is the most important thing. And also I would like to add there, you should take breaks. You should never just go full on and try to produce a track every week or something like that, because then you will get burned out eventually. I have done it myself, and I would never go back to that type of producing again. So I think what you need is like days or a week. Just let it take time.
Yeah, agreed. I think people get so stressed out and they're just so hard on themselves, and it's because we compare ourselves to like what we see people achieving in social media or whatever, but in the end of the day, like, we're all getting stuck and they're all having like terrible studio days as well. So
Yeah.
The only person you should ever compare yourself to is who you were yesterday.
yes.
And are you better than that?
Very wise.
Agreed.
Very wise. All right. Well, I am.
Oh, that's my other pseudonym, Moxfire.
That is, this is your other pseudonym. All right. So this is a track that you might as well tell us yourself, since you're here, that you want to split it into 2 ideas, or that you're thinking about splitting it.
Well, I've been okay. So this whole thing happened to me during the last remix competition, which taught me to really just trust myself and like do my own thing. I got a lot of feedback from you guys, which was excellent. But then I started trying to like the feedback was that it was too close to the original track. So I tried to do experimental stuff, but I only had 3 days left, and I decided to do color bass, which I don't know anything about, and I didn't have pitch map, which I do now. And I was like, it's just like an impossible task, and I was trying to like force myself to do it and give myself a lot of pressure, and I had a really bad time with it. So now I'm just sort of like working on this. I was listening to some house tracks that have it's called color house. It's like sort of like a super subgenre. There's like 10 tracks, but I'm trying to make stuff like that. And I wound up finding these really good vox that just fit the track really well, but they don't fit the color bass theme. So it's sort of like 2 different things happening at the same time. So I picked the less noisy and busy section.
All right. Let's check that out. Oh.
Oops, you can stop that
What?
now.
What? Huh? I was like, did the next track start playing? Oh wait, not yet. Even. Okay, yeah. So I think the whole chat has agreed that the vocals are out of key.
I totally lost objectivity. That's okay.
Bwah, 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 bwah. I'm really bad with this. Like I suck at a lot of things, but I was fortunate enough to have perfect pitch. So for me, it's like I can't even there's actually downsides. So the biggest downside to it is that if you give me a keyboard with a sample on it and the sample isn't exactly on the key it's supposed to be, I can no longer play the piano. My brain gets like totally messed up. Yeah, seriously. So that is the downside. And then the other downside is when something is out of key, it's like
Well, it's super distracting. You can't listen to anything else.
yeah, I think, it is easy for your ears to just go tired, but what I would do is just use like even the most dorky old, like Ableton has like a guitar tuner, like most DAWs have a basic tuner, and just be like, let me just double check that because I feel like my ears are made of marshmallow. And so I think at that point, yeah, resting and just using, I think I used to be ashamed to use plugins like that because it feels obvious or stupid, but you can never play by any rules when you've been working on something for hours, like
Yeah, I was working on this for like 6 hours last night, and then I'm like, all right, I need to go to bed now.
yeah.
One of the things that I like doing, and just for the fun of it as well, is actually just funneling my own voice through Melodyne, just to see how on pitch I am, because I always find it's very satisfying when you ask it to correct it and it barely does anything.
Yeah.
I like doing that with Ozone 9 and my mastering.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's like these plugins are really good for referencing, even if you don't plan on using them creatively.
If I can get a master where Ozone doesn't do anything to it, I'm like, woo. Or like does something that I don't want it to do.
Oh my God, this is amazing. I'm about to try, we'll see how this goes, but I'm about to try running the visuals. They're looking a little sturdy. Basically, this is a game of like, how much money can you spend on a Mac, which is the answer is I have spent the maximum you can spend on an M1 laptop, and still it cannot handle stuff like streaming people's videos. So, right now I still have 4% idle, so we're just gonna milk that 4%, and we're gonna.
I'm sitting here maxing out my Wi-Fi just because I'm curious about how that's lasting. I know I should be really hooked up to Ethernet.
Well, because we said tech talk, and just to go behind the scenes, in case anyone is remotely interested, like during the pandemic, obviously everybody started using Zoom. Everyone hated Zoom. Zoom is just like the Antichrist. But the thing about Zoom is they do have a technology of compositing people's feeds and then spitting them back to you in a way that generally is okay, right? Aside from the "can you hear me" symphonies that always happen. But I didn't really like that because as a video streamer, I want way more control. I want to be able to put these guys anywhere in the frame. Maybe I want to put Nathaniel at one rate, and maybe, in this instance, Samurai has a slower internet connection, so we want different settings. So in order to do that, we're using this great technology named Video Ninja, and I just want to plug it because this ultimate customer service, okay? The developer just came on with us before we even started and like gave us some tips. So it's a really kind of complex new technology, but it lets you customize everything. However, I'm still not sure. I'm not convinced that my M1 is totally running as optimized, because although a lot of stuff is finally catching up, I still have a couple of applications in there that are running as Intel, which means they're running inside one of my CPU cores, and they're probably not being very efficient. So in layman's terms, that's kind of like having 4 limbs and then having somebody just keep piling stuff onto one arm, right? So
and 2 of those limbs have to speak a different language at the same time.
Basically, so
yeah, one is speaking French, the other is speaking Spanish, and you're trying to do everything in English.
Exactly. So right now, their computers are working, giving me a custom feed, and my custom feed is coming back to them. We're trying all kinds of servers, and then I'm throwing in these wonderful, amazing generative visuals, which are really cool, but of course they're also really heavy. So this is what I really wanted to do during Audius, is that you can actually type stuff into the dark and like light, and you can see that the visuals actually get lighter. So I'm actually changing the color of the sky by typing into Twitch chat. And then this, of course, has not been edited, so we still have like Audius keywords. We have, I think, Underbelly keywords, which make little hearts with his face. There we go. See, I'm really sad that I wasn't able to do this. Like, you can just type Underbelly in the chat and you can get these amazing hearts. But it seems to, the good news with these settings, with having y'all as a group instead of like those 4 individual feeds, which are really murderous, I think we can do this. So
I've also just noticed that our stream title is actually still the old one.
Oh, well, I'm not even going to like touch that. If anybody wants to just tune in, why not? Have I seen Beat Cleaver's visuals? I have not. I would really love to get him on the stream. He's so much fun. I love Volta so much, and I'm looking forward to working with them. They made me these custom keywords and things like that, so I can send. What else do we have? We have a shockwave, boom, which sends that little we have a pulse, a color pulse. Boom.
I should make some of these.
Oh, phew. And so if anyone really wants to get nerdy about the way it's being done, I have a JavaScript node open on my computer. I have a program running inside of it
What
that has.
package are you using?
It's a custom little thing. Basically, the developers of Volta, because they're so awesome, they made me my own little like runtime like server thing, and I open it
Cool.
after programming my own keywords, and then inside of Volta. And this is one thing, like there's a lot of visuals programs, but this one is built by a bunch of audio people, so it's designed to let you hook your audio to it super easily. So I can actually, if I show you behind the scenes a little bit with this program, I can have.
If you're allowed to share that package, I would totally take that off you.
That's a
I'll have to ask. I think so, though. I mean, I think this is a beta feature, but you can see here how like this is almost just like a DAW automation where it has things on the side, and you can actually just connect them to either like the highs, lows, and mids of your audio, or you can use special OSC messages, which is how I'm doing these interactive. You can hook it to Tractor, you can hook it to Ableton Link, or you can just use like regular old MIDI. So this is super powerful because of that, and that is I'm gonna make an ear candy one sometime soon, but for now we have Pulse, we have Shockwave, we have I don't even have the scrolling thing because this is a random new thing that I've been testing my limits. 0.5% idle, what a beast. So
and I'm looking forward to when Volta gets object imports, like just OBJ files, STL files, that kind of thing, because then we'll be able to like not just go custom, but like world, like building a city type custom is kind of the level of detail I want to get into.
Whoa. Yeah,
I'm gonna make my computer cry so hard.
Well, I just started streaming, so I'm trying to like figure out how to build my overlays and stuff. So getting things like this would be really cool.
Oh, this is a lot of fun, but like I said, if you're trying to run Volta, it's definitely punishing a lot. So Nick has a track next. I'm stoked. What's up with your track, Nick?
Well, I just wanted to present something that is ready for you guys. It's actually a track that is coming up from my upcoming album that I'm working on. It's called Philosophies of a Restless Mind, and it's a chill out, ambient, lo-fi, cinematic kind of album.
The Nick Beeman cinematic universe.
Yeah, exactly.
All right.
No vocals in this one though, so it's only instrumental.
Unspoken words. interrupt this. It's so beautiful. It's just like leaving it going because I'm like lost in this paradise. It's so beautiful. I mean, I think I'm in agreement with the chat that really all it needs is some Foley because it's so like rich in storytelling. I wouldn't want to like interrupt that. But So I Thought is saying maybe some tape hiss or something like this. Natty, what do you think?
I mean, for me, you said there's no vocal elements, but I mean, I feel like there has to be some sort of human element to it, you know, whether that's... I mean, someone suggested Walk Through the City. I'll see if I can read that comment out. It was from Shinity96. On the topic of Foley, maybe try to incorporate Foley that tells a story, like a walk that begins on the beach and leads to the city, or something like that. I mean, I really like that idea. And the idea of, you could have crowd noises, maybe someone in the background having a conversation we can barely hear. Even just really simple vocal sounds, just sort of really subtle, like they're in the wind. Like a lady just going, ah.
How about you just doing that?
I think I'm gonna record this.
You don't have to just being put it on Twitch. I regularly
That's
switch.
true.
This is a really weird sort of example, but I've noticed a lot of pubs and bars have started piping noise into their establishments when they're quiet.
Really?
Yeah.
And it's really eerie, especially when you notice where the loop starts. Brewdog, for example, is a pub chain here that does they sell like IPAs and whatnot. But yeah, they actually have crowd noise piped out some speakers in their venues, and it's so weird. But in that context, I think it's creepy. But it does kind of capture a point. It's functional. Like, they're trying to sort of convey the idea that they're a busy, active, hype place. So the idea that people are there at all times kind of matters to it. It's another reason why a lot of establishments like shopping malls, they're designed to reverb and echo space, like echo sounds all across the space. So if one corner of the shopping mall is busy, it makes it sound like the entire shopping mall is busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which makes people want to be there because it feels like they're not in some dangerous, isolated place. And so they stay around and they shop longer, and it doesn't feel weird. Because it's a big empty warehouse, effectively, with some shops and stuff in it. But like in audio stuff like this, I think sometimes it can help. It doesn't really distract from it, and it's not really human. You're not telling a story with sound specifically in terms of what they're saying, but it adds texture in a way that's pleasant and makes it... Because this piece doesn't feel lonely, I think, as well. Like, it actually feels quite rich. Mm. And, like, stuff is actually happening in the story that matters. Yeah. But then that's why you have to bring the humanity back into it a little bit, perhaps.
Mm.
I think I understand what you're talking about. The thing is, the cinematic feeling of this track is kind of... It's intended to not have any background noises, because then you can actually use it for anything you like. For instance, like in a movie or something like that. But it could be nice. I was actually thinking at some part to have some sort of vocals with a poem or maybe some just like interesting sentences or something. But I don't know.
I have a
might be too much.
Your thought about, effectively licensing is kind of the whole thought there. The idea of it actually being used. You can always release two versions. One
That's
that you
true.
intend to be this is the one you should use, streamers and video people, go use this. But also you've got here's my audience. This is my listener copy for you guys. That sort of completes the picture rather than having it. One of the things that's recommended, you'll be able to confirm this from me, Isha, because you've done a lot of licensing. They kind of expect you to always have the stems on hand, don't they?
Oh yeah, for licensing, you kind of just want to be ready to go. Like, if anything, like if you're really into it, if you have a 60-second version, a 30-second version, and like 60 seconds including a nice tail, even like basically when I make a stuff for licensing, I will make a construction kit for the client, so they have the full mix, the instrumental mix. And if there was a vocal, that vocal is replaced with an instrumental lead. Then there's what they call the underscore. That's just usually like the drums and the bass. And that's for like, let's say the director likes it, but it's a dialogue heavy scene and they want like another, like essentially you allow them to do their own edits. And then you have what are called stings. So I might even just give them one long reverby cymbal crash that is almost like a tail that goes with it. So like, let's say they need a 45 second, they can chop it, stick the sting on, and it's ready to go. So for bigger licensing companies, they actually require you to deliver this. For smaller ones, they don't, but it can actually be a big difference if you have something on hand and you have an opportunity to be like, no, I don't need a day, I have this ready to go. Because let's face it, like we would love to think that all choices of music chosen for things are these altruistic, wonderful, well thought out moments where somebody ponders and finds the best option. That's not really how it works. A lot of people choose convenience. If they have a connection that has something pretty good, they will take that over trying to go and seek the streets of producer land for something else. So be ready, be fast. That's the trick for licensing.
It's the same thing when you're doing. I do like sort of like logo design for UX and UI design stuff, and you give them like a whole package where they have like different icons for different social media. They have different backsplashes for all those medias, and they're all different sizes to make sure they perfectly match.
Yeah.
So it's the exact same thing.
Don't. My SoundCloud is having a tantrum. They're like, you're not signed in. Would you like to get ads for no reason? Considering
Well,
I just repaid.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's just I'm just bitching because I just renewed my subscription. And I'm like, I don't even use this. I have to pay them $100 a year just to keep my music on there.
Yeah.
What the?
Yeah,
it's
I've
brutal.
ended up just resorting to deleting older tracks. So like only my
Same.
most current catalog is on my SoundCloud, and I have a separate burner account just for whips.
Yeah,
That's cool too.
Exactly. The Boxfire account is my whip burner account, and then my actual things that I'm like, okay, people can look at this and be like, this is what you produce, is my Backup BBzo one. And I will wind up doing updates and just deleting the old one and then putting the updated version and just losing all of the likes and everything.
Oh gosh, you see, like I was one of the first people on SoundCloud, so there's some nostalgia. Like I had like a number one on SoundCloud when it was possible, and at that time, like I'm not gonna like blow my own horn. You only needed like 7,000 plays to get the number one.
Still more than I've ever had on a platform. Well done.
But I had it. And here's the tragic punchline of this. It was a bootleg remix of Tron, which is a Disney movie. So it got number one, and then it got a lot of attention, and then I got like a bona fide strike on my account. You know, usually they give you they give you these fake strikes, but they're not real strikes. But this was a real strike. But here's the worst part. 3 weeks later, Disney threw a Tron remix contest on SoundCloud.
Oh, wow, that's brutal.
But
I would be
with a different
little bit butthurt
song,
about that.
so I couldn't just re-enter mine, and my stuff was already struck, so I lost my number one. And now it's impossible to get past the like Egyptian bot accounts of like, I don't even know what's going on. But speaking of SoundCloud sucking, this next track is from Brand Muffs, and it's called Who You Are Master. And for me, I just read, who is your master? And I was like, SoundCloud, not you. Not you, SoundCloud. So let's check out, did Brand Muffs say, mix and master, DJ ability, ass shake ability. All right. Nathaniel, do you have your ass shaking measurement device strapped to your ass?
It's currently incapacitated right now.
Okay, you're going to have to just visually measure. All right, everybody, let's
You gotta think about how
quantify.
thick those cheeks clap, man.
Ass shaking. I'm gonna say yes, and I do have a deep fondness for like juke and footwork and stuff. I do think that like your sounds need a little work. I think that your vibe is definitely vibe check is heavy. I love it. Dance floor, but also some stuff seems to be out of key. Is it just me, Natty? Out of key and
It's
key?
definitely got a
I
few
agree
things
with
out
you.
of key.
Nick's-
Chuck it in Melodyne if you have a copy, or even the Essentials version. It's really good.
I just even the essentials. I use the essentials, and I just did that with my track to figure out what was wrong with my vocals, and I just totally had the wrong keys for everything. So
But I'm not sure though if it's unintentional. It actually sounds intentional,
I mean,
but it
it's-
could be me.
I think it's trying to be like a fifth or fourth or something
Yeah.
like that. Like where it's a harmonic relative to whatever key the track is actually in, which is cool, but it is slightly off. So you still need to nudge it in one semitone direction or the other kind of deal.
Yeah, Brand Muffs is saying that they're basically tone deaf. So I think some of the stuff we just talked about on the stream before,
Okay.
there's so many plugins that will help you. And this is the amazing part about electronic music, right? Like back in the day, if you weren't like a cello virtuoso, you were not going to be like touring the medieval court circuit, you weren't going to be headlining those shows but now you don't have to play anything. You can just play the computer and the computer will tell you what key you're in. It'll give you chord suggestions. One of my favorite plugins that I always plug is Scalar, which allows you to sort of import your MIDI and then it kind of spits out a bunch of different options to make it more interesting and suggest different chords. And I used to laugh at this stuff because I'm a piano player, but even people who play instruments get predictable and get boring and do the same thing. So it's worth it.
you
Nick,
fall into patterns. Yeah.
Nick, are you do you play a lot of instruments? I know you sing, so I'm assuming you're
Yeah, I play the piano as well. I usually when I start making my tracks, I usually start up at the piano and then I work myself up to the computer. So I know
You're
what you
old
mean.
school.
I know what you mean when you say music can get predictable. You get stuck into patterns, and I actually agree with you on that chord progression. Apps, which are the plugins that are available right now, they're actually really good, and they have helped me as well to get out of my comfort zones and start to try something different. But to get to the track again, I really like this one. It has a very party-like fever, and I was about to start shaking my ass, but I think what you said, I think what you said, ill-esha, it has, it needs a little bit more work, and I think it has to do with the mix partially, and maybe with the vocals a bit too. But for me, what it was lacking the most was, I think it had a little bit too little variations. I need more ear candy. I would like to see more like pans and maybe a bit more like effects that stick out from the mix a bit more. Because right now it sounds a little bit too plain.
Ear candy.
I mean,
Yes.
right now the tempo is like boom, 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 boom. I mean, there's all these gaps where you could then have things like the claps then come in and just mimic the sort of general pace and go at the end.
A good one is polyrhythmic or polymetered ARP as well. That can just like fill in those holes. For me, the mix is mainly just sort of feels empty in the middle. I think it's a common thing that I notice with people when they start formant shifting their vocals is they don't compensate the space that they're moving the vocals out of. So in this case, you seem to have, I think, shifted it down, or they're just like really deep vocals. Maybe do like another layer, an octave above, but just like blend it in. That's one of my favorite tricks with formant shifting.
Nice. Samurai, did you shake your ass? How much ass shaking did you do?
Oh, it was up there. It was up there,
You're supposed
especially
to ask a
today.
child that?
You
Hey,
don't want to see that.
ass shaking is all ages. Like if you think there was a non all ages purpose to it, that's your problem, not mine.
Fair.
I especially liked the bass sound. Like wow, that's just a head bopper. That one, I like it. I just found some of the elements are discordant is all, but as said before, there are plugins that can help you with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep moving. I know that this is a shorter stream and some people have to go, but we did get some nice submissions. So let's go with Surreal Dimensions, looking for feedback on mix and arrangement. Whoa. Ah! I hate SoundCloud. It literally just doesn't even let you stop anymore. But I actually really enjoyed that one. That took me somewhere. Baco, I'm going to let you jump in first on that.
I am loving the house music today. Everyone's playing my shtees. Yeah, that especially that second groove that you got going on there, that is like real nice and smooth. I feel like there's just a couple elements missing. It just needs more stuff. It's the same as like everybody. Like anytime you listen to a track, for the most part, it's always just more ear candy, more automation, more dynamics between the drop and the or the break and the drop. Yeah, so same. Just keep adding layers, and when you think you're done, just add more.
Samurai, did you like that?
Yes, I did. I like the use of the effects, but no, that's not the point. Again, the bass line is really good. Very groovy.
Very.
Can't say too much more.
Very groovy. Nick?
Yeah, I really like the idea of this track as well, and I enjoyed the panorations and also, as mentioned before, the bass line. But I think the kick needs to be cleaned in the mix because it's very muffled right now, and also I would add a more punchier kick. In my opinion, it does not really stand out from the rest of the mix, so I think I would do something about that. But if you're not going to change the kick, you should at least look into the EQing of it, because it needs more work.
Natty, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the bass line's still stuck in my head, so kudos there. It's catchy AF. Also, Samurai saying like, I know the effects aren't the point. Well, I mean, the effects, especially in beats and EDM tracks and those things, they are the point in some ways because they add to the composition. Where you choose to have a delay or a reverb tail fade out or anything like that, that adds to the experience of the track, and especially if you're doing it deliberately.
Yeah.
It's the difference. Like, a beginner track might just place effects randomly or not have any at all, which is something I was very guilty of at the start of my production. I just barely had anything on anywhere. But like, a really well placed effect can be the difference between your track being an average one and a really, really good one. So I mean, no, like, when you say you like the effects, that's a good result to have and a good bit of feedback, I think.
Totally.
Absolutely.
I mean, but yeah, I'm in agreement with everyone else with regards to their criticism. But yeah, catchy bass line. It's still in my head. So
Catchy bass. I'm Baco. How catchy was that? How much we should have an ass shaking meter.
We just need like a little
The
person
torcometer.
who just like each judge has like, you can say shake that ass and it just starts getting more intense every time a judge says.
It's like the earthquake readings. Like, that was like a 7.9.
Yeah.
I felt that
Magnitude.
all the way out back. Oh my God. We're going to do one more feedback and then we're going to do some EDM trivia because I know some people have to go. So I thought that might be fun. But we have somebody named So I Thought coming in next. Natty, did they say anything special?
no, they left no feedback requests, which makes me sad. Breaks my heart.
Stormer. I love this. I mean, this is hitting hard. I don't have my stop pack on today, but it's still banging in the right place anyways, which is good. It means that you've got enough like top end distortion on your bass to make it stick out. So this is a good like headphone iPhone test, right? Like if your bass disappears, then that means that you have not created or emphasized sufficient harmonics in the middle range to give people the feeling of that bass being there. And that's the secret, right? Like sometimes people will listen to some crazy trap banger on a phone and be like, how do I hear that 808? Like it's not really there. And it's an illusion, right? Like the human ear actually like fills in certain gaps when it expects something, which is interesting because our eyes are the same way. So like, I don't know if any of you have seen the experiment where like they print a sentence or a paragraph and there are like letters missing out of all of the words, but you can still read them. And it's just because your brain fills in the gaps. And so with ears, it's the same thing. If you create like the top end of an 808, if you create the buzz and just a little bit of stuff on a big system, you won't even notice it that much because the sub will be crushing you. But on a small system, you'll hear that little top end definition and your brain will just auto-complete the bass. So I think that being said, you have that. Like I don't have my sub pack on, I don't have my speakers on, and I still was like, yeah, there is some nice bottom end there. What were you all feeling, Baco?
Yeah, that was really good. I think the mix just generally needs a fair amount of EQing. There's some synth elements that were not blending really well on the top end, and I feel like your low end is a little bit muddy and needs to just be tightened up. A really good plugin that I like to recommend to people is Waves, what is it called? Wave Observer Pro. There's a free version of it as well. The Pro is like $5 though. And it basically is just an oscilloscope for you. And I like to use that on my low end where it's just like trying to make sure that the kick and the bass are timed perfectly and that they're like, have their own space. So that's a super useful one. And then there was like a weird section in there. It might be because you're automating the tempo and you probably like copied a clip over or something like that, but the tempo spikes up for like a quarter of a bar and then goes back down again, and it's like sort of weirdly just jarring. So just double check your automation for that.
Yeah, it did
But
seem
it
a
was
little
cool.
funny. It did seem a little funny, but it wasn't latency. Like I could hear that on my side too. Natty,
No, it's definitely part of the track.
what did you think?
I mean, on the whole, I think what you're trying to do is very impressive. I agree with Neil McPhee in the chat there, saying that the synth glide at the end was really cool, but pull that stuff forward. You know, one of the things that you seem to have neglected to do with your tempo changes and stuff is automate your response of your synths. So they're all kind of doing the same thing for the entire track. You know, it makes a track like this more interesting to have things like the filters go cool and in and out of their space, but also you can change the portamento pattern, the glide, so you can have tracks like where the ARP is going just really punchy, and then it just at the end of the bar just does this whole glide thing into the next bar, and it's suddenly like, oh, really dynamic, and it gets it away from being a loop sounding track to something that's organic and evolving by itself. The other thing I think as well that will help with the mix is just make it more stereo. Right now you're kind of operating on 2 or 3 levels, but you need to maybe up that to 4, 5, 6 different zones within your stereo field where things are happening, and they can cross over again as another aspect of your automation that you can tweak and play about with, is having things move from one level to the next, as long as you don't do it with your bass, because that tends to create weird results.
Nice. Anyone else? Thoughts?
Yeah, sure. I think it was really good, and the feedback that Baku and Nathaniel gave was spot on. I would like to add that the bass line, for my taste, it was a little bit too far out on the stereo side. I would keep it more mono to actually make the other sounds sound more stereo. But this is I mean, if for a very bass focused track, it's very important to have that. But in this track, I think you would be more gentle with it and instead let the synths have a more stereo wide feeling. And I would also work on the levels of the synths so that you bring forth some of the synthesizers that have the leading sound and keep down the more how do you say it, the not the lead synths, a bit far back in the mix. So yeah, that's what I would do. Yeah.
Very insightful.
Once again, I
So
really
yeah, we're
liked-
gonna have
Oh,
this.
Samuel.
Samuel,
Samuel, yep.
go for it.
Once again, I really liked the bass sound that you used and how repetitive it was. I think it really helped put me off in a trance, even though it might not be a trance track. I also liked the layers you used, especially how you've made them fade in and fade out of each other. But I'd recommend automating some filters and using timbral changes. I'm not sure about the music theory term, but it's like vowel changes with the synths, like going from I to you. Or I'm not sure, but it would really, in my
Formant
opinion,
filters.
add some interest to the track, keep the listener engaged. Great job.
Nice. Very good job. Damn, this is not. It is not giving me. That is so annoying. I don't know why it's.
Oh. I didn't mention one thing I wanted to say.
Go for it.
There's more in regards
Please
to your
do.
comment, was where you were saying that people's brains automatically fill in the. It's usually the fundamental that it'll fill in. So it's a super useful trick for sound design, actually. At least Serum has it, I know for sure. I'm not sure if other synths do. I imagine Vital probably does, but there's an option where you can go into the wavetable and just remove the fundamental from the wavetable, and it sounds almost the same, but it gives you the space in the low end, so you can start stacking things up on top of each other without having the actual frequencies there interfering with each other. So that's super useful for layering as well.
Oh, is it not working?
Oh, I think I just did it. I wasted a credit on it not working. Yo, there we go. Oh my God, it's EDM trivia. Dun, 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 dun.
The answer to all the questions is 42.
The answer to all the questions is definitely 42. That is what you want. Yeah, so we're just basically having fun. And Nick, I know you had like a limited time, so if you have to go, like you do whatever you please. You are welcome. Everybody's
We are very
welcome.
grateful to you.
We are very grateful. The only thing I hate about this is I don't know how to take this 2-minute countdown. Like there doesn't seem to be an option where I'm like, no, I want to do my own countdown, yo. I don't need your weak.
Maybe you just gotta like fire it preemptively or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I tried to do, and then it was like, I'm not working. All right, so we're starting in 1 minute, and what is going to happen here? Well, this is kind of a test. It's more for fun, but I am giving away little EDMP sticker packs, and it doesn't matter where you live because I live both in Europe and America. So if you live in America, I will mail it in the next few days before I go back to Europe, and if you live in Europe, I will mail it when I get over there, and if you live somewhere else, I will be an adult and I will figure out how that is because it's a sticker pack. So basically...
I mean, if they end up in the UK, you can give some of me when we go to Barcelona. I can mail them from here.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, I'll give you some in Barcelona. Well, you know what? Let's listen to Schnitty's song while we wait for this long countdown, which is taking absolutely forever. So let's just play Schnitty's song. Something I wrote in 3.5 hours. I'm running out of ideas. Okay. Sounds.
Because you only gave yourself 3.5 hours.
Okay, well, yeah, duh. All right. What I make in 3 hours, let's just say it's not that. I don't know. I'm a very, very slow worker. I come from the pre-YouTube days when, like, not only did you have to figure out everything for yourself, you also had to figure out how to optimize your, like, 8 megabyte sampler and, like, your, like, 25 gigabyte hard drive. Well, maybe I'm not that old, but you know what I'm saying. Like,
I
This is hilarious.
floppy disks when I was a kid. So.
I just feel
not
like
like legitimately like they were floppy. Like
To spoil some of my personal life, Dad was amused at the idea of you talking like you were some ancient old wise one.
your dad. Oh
Yes.
yeah.
Because he watches the stream sometimes, and he's like, "Isha's always talking like she's lived forever, and yet."
In rave years, it's kind of like cat or dog years. In rave years, I'm at least 450. Like,
totally, I agree with that.
no question.
It's funny. The community that I hang out with now is like, we're all in our like late 30s going into 40s, and we're all still a bunch of rave kids, and it's just sort of like, where's this growing up thing that's supposed to happen? Like
I know.
Growing
Well,
up is a lie.
Let's give Schnitty some rapid fire feedback before we do this. Nick, go.
Okay, yeah, I really like this track, and I think it had a kind of a psychedelic feeling with that glitch thingy. I don't know what it was, but I really liked it. The only thing I really didn't like was the kick. I think it stood out a bit too much in the mix. And that's all the feedback I have on the negative side. So for me it was a really good track, well mixed, but the kick was a bit too present in the mix.
Baco.
Yeah, cool track. Definitely had me vibing. I do always want more dynamics between like when you're sort of like leading into the drop area. If you can just make some little gap of silence or like quiet where there's almost nothing, it just makes it hit so much harder. But other than that, I would get Soothe, or otherwise I would definitely do like some dynamic EQ or multiband compressing in the top end, because that glitch is like almost perfect, but it just has like a tiny bit of resonant sharpness. And there's an ambulance.
Woo, Samurai.
I really love that thick bass. I reckon one thing you could do to improve the sound is put on some bandpass features and bandpass filters and timbre changes on the glitchy stabs up top. I reckon that might work. But other than that, I really like the track. Good job.
Nice. Natty.
I mean, for me, the weakest point was the intro. While I really like those sort of glitchy ARPs, by themselves, they're not actually that interesting because they rely a lot on the dynamics between the different ARPs and the bass. So maybe have some sort of percussive element that, you know, isn't super low-endy because you still want to reserve that for your moment where everything clicks together. But you need something to give it more energy. So think shakers, hi-hats, that kind of thing, just to give your intro some sort of push that keeps people listening and say, okay, this is all deliberate. And then when everything makes sense, they're like, and then they're grooving because the bass is so slapping. And, you know, that I think that's kind of where you need to go with arranging this. And maybe once you've done that, you'll be able to look at everything else and say, okay, now I've done that. How does that affect the perception of everything else? And make adjustments accordingly from there.
Wicked. Did we all go? Did everybody go?
I think so.
Are we ready for a rousing game of EDM trivia? Question 1. What company invented the VST plugin format? Type the number into the Twitch chat. Is it X for Records? Is it Steinberg? Is it Image Line? Or is it Avid? You've got 28 seconds on the clock. Sorry for the bot. That's the Volta Visuals script. Just ignore that. I apologize, but I haven't fixed that late. That's just some visuals triggering, but it is actually, it should be working with the survey as well.
I guess we'll find out.
Yeah. So.
That's the point of this stream as well, to make sure things
exactly
that aren't connected aren't too broken.
Yeah. All right. 2 seconds and oh my God. Oh.
Computing answers.
Computing answers. I need to really just make this sound effects pack.
We need to remix the
ear candy. We need.
We need to remix the, what do you call it, countdown theme.
Yeah, we need like the ticking clock. We need like more. Oh, Steinberg, and pretty much everyone got it right. Sorry about that, Brand Muffs. Good effort, good effort. Everyone else has got the right answer. The right answer is Steinberg, which is.
And everyone's got a love-hate relationship with Steinberg.
You know, Cubase Nuendo was actually my first DAW, and Cubase SX was the second, and they were basically the same thing, but Nuendo has more like surround sound capabilities. But yeah, I love them, but they're too expensive for me now. But they're great. It's still a great DAW. It's just out of my price range. All right, next question. When did that company first release that first VST plugin? Was it 2001, 1996, 1989, or 1898?
I thought you'd get a kick out of
Ye
that one.
old, that ye old VST plugin.
Imagine if it was
Oh, hear
1998.
ye, hear ye. Thou shalt ride in horseless carriages with automation. All right, yeah, and
I
everybody
don't
only
think
gets one
computers even
vote,
existed
so.
then.
It's like Spider-Man.
You
Everyone
don't
only
even
gets
know.
one.
All right, computing answers. Wow, this is like one of those computers from the 50s that took up the entire room. That's like computing. What we actually need is somebody with a modular synth, because I think all of these sound effects need to be done with modulars.
Oh, I mean,
1996. All
it's
right.
as old as me. Way.
Is that when you were born?
Yeah, February 1996. In fact, I'm slightly older than the VST format. Ever so
Busy
slightly.
talking to everybody, and I have my bloody interface off.
Oh.
And I was actually using the first VST format, so
Wow.
when it came out, yeah.
But you look so young. All right, next question. Don't worry, we only have like 5 questions here. But which of these are not DAW plugin formats? 1. Time division multiplexing. 2. Spectral compression connector interface. 3. Clap. 4. Audio units. So one of these things is not like the other. One of these things.
One of these things is dead.
Yeah. One of these
I don't
things
know this one at all.
is not a thing. So yeah, believe it or not, like all of these look fairly imaginary to me. Even like audio unit, it sounds like a meme. It's like, bruh,
But I could totally
Get
see
a
a
load of
developer
these
being like,
audio
we're just gonna
units.
call these audio units.
these
and
are
like,
absolute units. And the answer is
Computing answers. Computing answers.
yeah, I was saying I can totally make you what is it, 42-second loop that you can play every time when it's calculating.
well, I'm a sound designer. I feel ashamed. But the problem is I had to spend the last year learning all this video stuff. So yeah, spectral compression connector interface is not a thing. And do you want to, Natty? You came up with this question. What's
What
the deal
is
with
that?
it?
So basically, I was thinking about things like clap and how audio can like formats for plugins are just getting weird. And then I found out on the Wikipedia for plugins that one of the DAWs, I can't remember which one now off the top of my head, uses something called time division multiplexing as a format. So I was like, well, okay, we need to make something that sounds a bit like that up, which is
Ah, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
All right, and speaking of answers that sound alike, this is another Nathaniel genius. Which band was the first to use the TR-808 drum machine? Was it Yellow Magic Orchestra, Orange Ordinary Band, L'Orchestre Cinématographique Bleu, or Green Trumpet Trouple?
Oh,
I don't know.
that's
any
a tough
of
one.
these. I
That's
know-
a really
guess
tough
the one.
one.
That sounds like a real band.
I have no idea.
It was
I'm
Mozart.
evil, I know.
I know, sorry. Mozart is not an answer, but you're probably right. Mozart's 808s are the hardest.
Who's the one that wrote the canon one? It's that guy.
I think there was a brief period of time where people were doing trap remixes of classical symphonies. I'm glad that that's not a thing right now. I think.
Figure out how to shoehorn a 3/4 beat into an EDM track.
The correct answer is Yellow Magic Orchestra. So,
Now, I know the story behind that one because they're my brother's, one of his favorite bands. They're from Japan, and as far as Roland is concerned, they were the first band to use the TR-808 drum machine because they were one of those early synth pioneers alongside Kraftwerk and that sort of group of folk. But obviously because they're in Japan, they were fairly niche, so most people have never heard them existing.
Makes
check out their
sense.
first album. It's actually quite cool.
It's
The
true.
Japanese name with the not perfect English, and then also using the latest technology.
So when was the
Very
theremin
Japanese.
invented? When was it? 54, 1940, 1920, or 1820? Back with the VST in 1898. OG signal flow.
You guys coming from a different universe? Like, is it advanced technology back in 1800s?
Bing, bing, bing. Ah,
Well, it would have been in the 1800s if it. There was in the 1920s. There was also it was like 1910s or something. There was also this massive organ thing, which the sound. It was basically an early synthesizer, and the whole system took up an entire room in the basement.
So XE Fusion says, I don't even know what this is. So one of our contestants in the competition, and really Ryan, actually uses a MIDI theremin, which, if you don't know what a theremin is, think of those old horror movies on those little like weird space sci-fi sounds. That's a theremin, and it was invented in 1920. Natty, do you want to tell people who might not know what a theremin is in like one sentence?
It's an electrical conducting interface, effectively. So it creates an electrical field that spans vertical, and depending on how far away your hand is, which is conducting that electricity, that changes the tone.
It's true. It's true.
Very succinct.
19.
My friend's building me one.
20.
He doesn't know it's going to be mine, but I'm very excited.
Absolutely amazing.
We also had a contestant in the ILBC Bristol round who uses electrical conductivity of objects to make her music. It's the same principle, really, but
Oh,
with
yeah.
a different input. Yeah, and that and first.
Yeah, electrical stuff is tight. It's like such an old technology, but I mean it's real. Like think about opto compressors, like compressors that use light being flashed on them
Well,
to
something's happened to the
for the
stream.
compression response. Whoa,
Something just crashed.
I don't know what
No.
happened. Hold on.
Are we still live?
Well, my Twitch is just
Oh.
freaked out.
There we
Maybe
go.
And we're back.
That was weird.
Yay!
I don't know what that was. That wasn't even. That was a very random OBS hiccup, but it came back. Props to OBS 28. We have Rolly, a track called the Do It Live, and like I said, again, I know this is an impulsive stream. We got like 4 or 5 more. Well, let's go reasonably quick. Let's do like lightning round feedback, and then if anyone has to drop out, they can. But we've got Rolly,
Maybe
Do
close
It.
the queue now.
Yeah, the queue's been closed. I closed it a while
yeah.
ago.
It's
Don't
been closed for a
worry.
little while.
Yeah.
Who dares to awaken me? Come on. Fuck that beat up. Bitch, please.
do this fresh. I was like the whole time like itching to rap. And yes, I am a former rapper, but it takes a lot these days to make me want to do that. So this had that little like hooky groove. I really love your vibe and your beats, and like I think this is great. The only thing is I think that you could make your sounds a little bit more dynamic. Like it sounds like you've taken some very good basic waveforms, like, you know, a buzzy saw kind of in the bass, and maybe you have like really good starting sounds, but part of what makes sound design dynamic, part of what makes it push and pull, part of what makes it move is sculpting it, right? It's kind of the same if you're like, I'm going to make a sculpture of somebody's head, and then you just carve an oval out and a neck, and then you're like, okay, I'm done. So that's great, but you need features, you need things to make it a face. And I think that with sound design, you can either do automation within your DAW, or you can do like modulation within your synth, but just something to make things move. And there's things like, I don't know, notch filters, automating the level of a distortion up and down, or the type of distortion. Depending on what synths you're using, there are so many ways that you can make things move. You can even just use envelope followers. They're one of my favorite sort of underused tricks to sort of just change the shape of that sound, because that was the thing is like I love your beat, but like sometimes when the sounds were coming in, they felt very square, and I don't mean like a square wave, I mean just like, here's the sound, it's coming, it's leaving. And that's what I used to tell my students when they didn't like mess with the attack or the release or like the filter envelope. I was like, you just gave me this big block. It's like a giant, it's like when you play Minecraft on low res, right? It's like big blocks in front of you. And maybe I love 8-bit, I love lo-fi technology if we're sticking with this metaphor, but there still needs to be movement in order to make it interesting. So
we need to turn the rain effects up. If we're comparing it to Minecraft.
Turn the rain effects up.
Fancy graphics.
Yeah.
And let you in on a secret that everything is still blocks even when you're on high.
Whoa. Whoa. Bro, I don't know. I've never been
blocks
part of that.
all the way down.
I would love to hear some vocals on this one, actually. I think this track screams for something like Beastie Boys screaming
Totally.
rap kind of vocals. I would love to see that in this
We're
track.
here and we are ILBC.
Yeah, I mean it has a very good retro vibe, the track, and I kind of, I can almost see them screaming to this in a music video, like bringing back the Beastie Boys from the 90s.
Yes.
Yeah,
Totally. Baco?
that would be cool.
Yeah, really creative track. I was digging it the whole way through. I almost feel like there's two ideas in here, because it's sort of like the beginning section and then the second section, and like maybe try developing one and breaking it off into its own track, and then you got two tracks, which is cool. Really interesting mixing decisions. Not the way that I would mix it, but I think it's like super creative and like
They were looking for
really-
mixed feedback, so feel free to be like detailed
Yeah,
if there was something weird.
It's not like that it was weird. It's just not the way that it's like, just not the standard way to do it. Because you had like your synths more mono, and then you had like this crazy sort of like mid stereo, like mid bass, which usually people are always like, "Man, don't do that." But I love good stereo bass if you use it properly, and just make sure that like anything under 120 is usually monoed. But yeah, I don't know if I have any like specific advice because it's just so different from what I've been taught and what I've learned myself. So, but it's cool, and I think it's like a cool creative decision, and now you need to like take that sort of creativity and apply it to like automation and modulation and changing things. So yeah.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
I think one other thing is that this track is almost dying for some serious swagger in places.
Serious
Right.
swagger.
Swagger.
Fuck yeah, this
But I
definitely
mean,
needs swag.
I mean, like, right now, it's okay to play it really straight in what you'd call maybe your verses, but come the really hype sections of your track, I want there to be some more syncopation going on, to give it some swing, and, I mean, just edge out of being on beat with everything. Because right now, that it's sort of taking away from what you're trying to do here, which is have this slamming hip-hop track.
It's true. It's true. I want to use your voice, Natty, saying serious swagger as like a pre-drop sample, like serious swagger.
Serious swagger.
All right, let's check out. We just got a couple more. We're just doing a quick Sunday hangout, and then I'm gonna tell you a little fun thing we have because we have the finals of ILBC coming up. This is like the big Kahuna closer crowner event, but I'll tell you more. We're gonna listen to Omni S. Made a couple of sample and EQ change. Or no, sorry, that's the person in front of them. I've concurrently trying to get my mixes as close as possible to the industry standard. So any feedback about mixing would be great. Okay, mixing it is.
Losing control. I've never been so high. Just so you know. You make me feel like I'm losing control. I've never been so high. Just so you know.
Wow, some beautiful, epic stuff. But as others said, lots of reverb, so much reverb. We're so far away, and we're in such a big canyon. I might be going on a canyon trip with my dad. I feel like I'm already there. I like it. I like it a lot. As a drum and bass fan, I think it's beautiful. But yeah, something needs to be up front, right? Like you have to make some decisions. Just as like everything can't be in the middle and everything can't be in the front, everything can't be in the back either. Nick, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And I wasn't sure about the mix because it sounded like it was a very low quality mix down, and I couldn't really hear everything out. Or maybe it's the stream, I'm not sure, but
Well, if it's compared to the other stuff and it sounds different, then it's not the stream. So
yeah, but I agree on you with the reverb part. It has a bit too much of it, and the other thing I kinda wanted was the vocals to be more present because I couldn't really hear what she was singing, and maybe it was due to the reverb, or maybe it's due to the vocals needing a little bit more level. I'm not sure, but yeah, definitely need some work there on the mix. But I loved the transitions and I mean the effects and everything else. I mean the arrangement and stuff. You really know what you're doing there, and I just think it deserves a bit more on the mix to make it more perfect.
Baco?
I love this track. This track was excellent. Totally reminds me of my old Raven days. I wrote down a bunch of notes. Great use of atmosphere. I really like the textures and the layers that you used in order to still have presence when there was nothing going on. And I also enjoyed the filling, like the use of empty space in order to like make a contrast. I think it's diminished a little bit because of the levels of compression that you have on there. I know that the industry standard is to compress the ever-loving F out of it, but easing up on the compression gives you that the difference between like when you're in that break and then when you're going back into the drop again, because without it just sort of sounds like it's all at one level. Everyone is right about the vocals. They should definitely come up. One thing that you can do is throw on some slapback delay. That'll usually actually like physically move the vocals forward. And then I would like gate the reverb, because it's cool to have like that really big, awesome, spacious reverb or whatever. But the tails just all start blending together and it turns into a mucky mess. Or you could also use like an envelope follower to like, when they initially hit, that'll spike up the reverb and then it'll like come back down again, so that you can get like those big, like nice, like woo when you want it to really impact, and then it'll like tighten back up so that you aren't mixing in like a giant quagmire.
Ah, very cool advice indeed. Natty?
I mean, I think if you have to bring the vocals up, you're gonna have to de-ess them more, because right now those transients in her, like, well, S sounds mainly, are actually taking up a lot of the vocal headroom and making it harder to understand what she's saying. And then it's being all smushed into your reverb, and it's like you're getting all these really high frequency resonances in her voice overlapping each other, which is also making it hard to understand what she's saying. So like you go at the very start of the chain, if you don't have a good de-esser plugin, then, you know, do it old school, go in manually and tweak the length of those sounds. Use a volume like automation on those sounds so that it just eases down faster or doesn't reach as high a peak. Otherwise, you've got, I mean, everyone recommends Soothe, which I don't have. But I mean,
Dynamic
even
EQ?
Yeah.
well, a dynamic EQ like
TDR
especially
Nova
in multiband. Yep,
is
our
free.
favorite.
Yeah, I mean, Soothe does that, but it's like a, you know, it's a fancy algorithm, but I have it, and, you know, honestly, sometimes it's great, but sometimes TDR Nova is just the same thing. So, you know.
You just need different tools for different jobs. I love Soothe, and I put it on almost anything that even resembles a track. But that being said, sometimes I still have to go in with a multiband compressor or with dynamic EQ in order to really nail that spot.
Yeah.
In the other direction as well, maybe some of your other sounds could also do with a little bit more high-end presence, in which case I recommend chucking on an exciter onto those sounds. Even that snare, for example, is very flat sounding right now. Occasionally, maybe not all the time, but it might be benefit to have it be a little bit more snappy in certain parts of your song, in which case automate in an exciter so it's like giving that edge to the upper frequencies of the sound.
Also, envelope follower works well on distortion for that.
Apparently, Andrew Huang has been dropping the envelope follower trade secrets. I guess I need to keep up on the times.
Did he do a video on it?
Apparently.
I agree
I love
with
his videos. I didn't see it,
Nathaniel.
though.
I agree with Nathaniel on that snappy snare part, but I would have it on like a place where you have less drums and more like maybe a kick and a snare and less sounds in the background. to make
Exactly.
that- Yeah,
Less.
that would be
sounds.
really cool.
Yeah, I absolutely. All right, we just got a couple more left. One of them is from Psycho Acoustics, aka Mike the Performer, and this is a funny feedback request, so I'm going to read it. It just made a couple of sample and EQ changes. Otherwise, it's the final version. What title sounds better? Oops, all house cliches or oops, all house tropes? I'm going to say tropes. I think it's like,
I agree with tropes.
it's a little more like roll off the tongue. Oops, all house tropes. Cliches is like you got to get fancy at the end of it. We want to get dirty. That's just my
Also, I'd say tropes. It's like implies that you're being deliberate and you're not trying to sound cringe. You just
It's true. Like
That-
a cliche is almost like you didn't mean to do it, right? I don't know.
Yeah, cliche is more like somebody would say that about your track. and trope.
Exactly.
I'm saying
Yeah.
it about my own.
Trope is like you're owning that. You're owning it all.
Yeah.
All right.
In the beginning, there was Jack. There was
ceremony of sound, the gathering of the spirits that would lift us off the ground. My vision was so clear, it's still hazy in my mind. I must have went to house heaven because nothing's that divine. Somebody scream!
This is like 5 minutes long, so I'm gonna. But well done on including so many tropes in such a small space. By the way, I don't want to jinx it, but I think I have a new system that's better for not muting myself. I've been doing pretty well today. I basically, I don't mean to give away all my trade secrets, but I made myself a big angry red icon on the stream deck that flashes at me when I'm muted. So
Perfect.
Seems to be working.
That's one way to do it.
Yeah, no, it works. The other day in the competition, I ran out of room for buttons, and so I had my mute button on the other screen, and so that's why, like, every single time I came back, I was muted. So I'm really happy other people were talking. I think that this sounds better. It's still, like, quite sharp for me, and I don't know if that's, like, you throwing a quick limiter on it, and then, like, of course, you're using a lot of samples that are older. So I think that, we just talked about soothe, we just talked about dynamic EQ. I would kind of just go in and like, here's what I do, like, to make sense of things if I'm doing something really crazy like this. And usually this would be something I would do for sample packs, but this kind of goes the same. Make a few channels with basic processing on it. Like, say, one channel that has a low cut at 200 and one that has one at 100, and then just like sort your samples. Like, and maybe it's too late because you've already got things in arrangement, but like, let's say you were just starting. This is what I would do, is just kind of throw them in those channels and like just separate them to be like, okay, these ones need lots of cut. This one needs, more compression. And that way, if you're just managing like hundreds of different little samples, you can already start out by having them in like decent sounding lanes, and then like as you choose which ones to pluck, you could like freeze the channel or you could copy the processing. It can be a little easier than starting with like 700 different channels and being like, how do I EQ this, is to just put them in order. So like, especially when I'm doing Foley, I'll go and I'll take all my recordings and be like, okay, these are the ones that have tons of low end noise, these are going in like the hard cut, and like, oh, this is a really delicate one, I'm going to put this in the one with less processing. And then by the time I'm ready to do something, I'm sort of like half mixed. Yeah, sharp is in like not even just maybe highs, but maybe like that mid high. I'm not the best at like just magical frequency identification. I definitely have to use like my EQ to go in and search around like an old Luddite. But I would say that like sometimes I think it's the high end and it's not. It's actually like the high mids. Like sometimes I think it's
usually like 9,000 or like 1,200.
Exactly. Or sometimes 3K. 3K is also
3K is also really bad.
And that one, it's like, it won't really sound high. It just sounds like annoying and kind of shrill. And then you cut the highs and then you've like ruined your mix, but you have this like very sharp thing. So
an interesting fact is babies cry at around 3K and humans are very sensitive to it.
Ooh. Maybe that's why like I've blocked it out. Maybe I block out screaming children on planes. So I'm like 3K. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't hear that frequency. But yeah, Nick, what'd you think?
Yeah, I think it was a very interesting track. I felt very nostalgic when I listened to it because, like, you had every disco hit from the from my childhood in there. I think you had samples from several tracks that I remember. So I was a little bit nostalgic about that. But when it comes to the mix, I would say I think the kick you have in there, it needs to have a little bit of high end removed because the punch right now is a little bit over the top. So I would like remove some of it to get I think you should have some punch in it, but right now it's a little bit too much, and it can be here most clearly in the beginning of the track when you don't have that many things going on. So later on in the mix you can't hear it that loud, but it's still there, and it affects all the other high-end parts of the track. So I would look into that. Other than that, I think, I was a little bit distracted by all the samples, so I'm not sure, but I liked it. It was a pretty cool disco song.
Natty?
I mean, if you can get the whole world to somehow hear this song, they'll never be able to use any of these individual samples again.
Just
be done.
Just be done.
This is it.
This is it. This is the peak use of these samples. Nobody is allowed to use them ever again.
I'm actually curious to see if this is going to trigger some kind of like meltdown inception of the whole algorithm that like, tries to think like the Twitch one that like will mute you and stuff. Maybe it'll be like, I can't decide which song it is because it's all of them.
And I can't decide which
get, like,
label
70
to
copy strikes.
You have 73 strikes on your account.
From 73 different labels, and all of them want a cut. I saw that. That used to be a thing that people recommended doing on YouTube if you wanted to piss off the big three, was to make sure that you were in your video you had a bit from every label. So you have Sony, Warner, and Universal all fighting for a claim on it, and most of them give up because they can't be bothered arguing with each other over who gets what.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way you can clear, like, there's always going to be one person that says no. So I would say, like, the destination of this track is, like, a great party tune. Like, if you don't know DJs, you should get to know DJs. Like, get to know people who, and then just fire it off to them and just get it kind of viral. Because the thing is, there is this, like, sort of weird gray zone of, like, satire and fair use. And, like, this is pretty satirical. So I feel like if this were to go viral, and it could, because there's so much confusing multi-samples in there, like, you could make it big with that, but you certainly couldn't just like upload it and expect it to stay up without a problem.
You could also just like upload it on an alternate account and just wash your hands of it, and if it goes viral or whatever, just use the fame from it to like promote your real music.
The answer is honestly
and don't make
TikTok.
money off the other one.
Yeah,
The answer is
TikTok.
honestly TikTok, because the way
Oh,
their
yeah, God,
licensing system is different to everyone else's, and YouTube
I
is
just
actually
don't think
looking
they
at
follow
adopting
the
this.
licensing.
Well, TikTok actually pays a flat rate to the big three,
Oh,
to
wow.
basically allow them to use effectively anything and just pay it appropriately that way, because the big three labels don't actually care about their songwriters getting money; they only care about themselves getting money.
Of
Yeah.
course, of course. I mean, I'm
And so for them, it's a great deal. For everyone else, they're screwed.
I
But
still can't believe, like, when I first signed with a major label, like just a song, it was like 12%. I get 12%. And I just looked at it. I was like, is this a joke? 12? They mean like 12% of what? No, 12%.
And then don't forget, you have to pay taxes on that too, and then
Yeah.
you have to like deal with all the business expenses and try to figure out how much. Oh, yeah.
And they spend money, like, which they don't really clear with you, which is fine because they're supposed to be this label that knows better. But honestly, like, the bigger the label, the more out of touch they are with like modern methods. So like, I won't say what this label is. You can probably figure it out if you go through my discography. But we were on a compilation, and the label starts out by putting up each song on SoundCloud all at once, 6 weeks ahead of the release. 6 weeks
What?
ahead of the release. So that was my promo from them. Was like they threw all 30 tracks
Did
of the
they
compilation.
also put an ad out in the newspaper for you? Or?
Yeah, a billboard. A billboard would have been cool. Yeah. So basically, I'm just sitting there being like on a SoundCloud that like has no followers as well. It was like it was just like every mistake that you can make, and I was like, well, I'm glad that I get 12% of nothing because it's the same as 12% of it being really big, and in this case, I don't have to feel like I'm missing out on any money.
do you remember how pissed off I was?
Yes. It was just so bad. So yeah, major labels, I would say use major labels if you can to like do some remix and get paid way too much for doing it. But I don't know. I've stopped thinking that someday I'm gonna get signed. Yeah,
I
don't
want
know.
to get signed to Anjuna Beats like in like 5 years, and I only want to get one track signed, and I only want to do it just to prove to myself that I could do it.
Yeah, and I mean,
Actually-
yeah. Go ahead.
Actually, there is a good thing about the bigger labels. I mean, you can all joke about it, but the thing is they have connections which reaches the playlists on Spotify, and also I mean, the fans out there. They have ways of reaching them that you can't.
Only if they
as
deem you're
a-
important enough is the problem there.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah. So this was what happened with
But
the
it's,
compilation, because like some of the artists were like their artists, so they obviously prioritized them more and got them into playlists.
Yeah.
And then there were us, just the plebes, who were like filling space on the album with the 6-week-old obscure SoundCloud link. So
But it's a good way to use. I mean, you should use a bigger label for what they do. If you're in the start of your career and you want to make it big, and maybe putting one track on a major label would actually be good for you. But it all depends on how they handle the track, and you, of course. I mean, there are really bad scenarios where you could end up like in ill-esha's case here, but there are also good cases where
no, that's a good.
people who are, yeah.
That's a good point.
So,
No, and I think you're
yeah.
right to bring that up, because sometimes people who are just starting, they stress about what percentage they're getting when they don't even have anything
Yeah.
out yet. So I totally
Yeah,
agree.
It's kind of like 5% of
Just
something
use
is
it
better
as a
than
stepping-
0% of nothing, right?
Yeah, like
Yeah,
don't give
just-
them your favorite track that you've ever made unless
Exactly.
you're sure about it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, they are good for exposure if you need the exposure. If you, my situation, I was sort of already like at a certain level where I was like, okay, you should take me beyond, and instead they were like, nah, we're just gonna leave you where you are because you're not our
Yeah,
artist.
That
so,
sucks.
but
I
yeah.
think it just comes down to like anything in creative fields is you just sort of have to like pick out your goals and like read the fine print and always get a lawyer to look at
Exactly,
anything you're ever
yeah.
signing, for the love of like it will save you so much headache and money, and it will cost a lot up front, but it's totally worth it. And make friends with law students, man. They'll do it for free.
True.
Or beer or whatever.
And although this is not legal advice, if you see a sentence in a contract that says throughout the universe in perpetuity, read a little
Run.
closer. at least.
Especially perpetuity.
Yeah, perpetuity and through the universe as well, because that literally means like when Elon goes to Mars and starts a new planet and starts a club out there, they are going to be just claiming everything there. So future-proof yourself for Mars, folks. Nick, have you ever put something out
I
on a
can't believe
major
they've
label?
thought that far ahead. I mean, I can, but
Well, not. I mean, I have a track on Armada Records. It's not a major, but
That's
it's
still pretty big, though.
huge.
Major.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
I respect that.
I also have a second track on Armada on a sub label of them called Electronic something. I can't remember. It was back in 2001. It was my
Ooh,
first track released.
I want to link to
and
that
it
track
was-
because I probably listened to it.
yeah, it was together with a guy called Özgür Khan, and it's called Not Even Winds. It's actually one of the it's one of the bigger vocal progressive tracks from back then. It was supported by DJs like the Idiot Tiesto, Armin van Buuren, and yeah, it
Nice.
was pretty big back
Those are
back
my
then.
favorites.
Oh, I'm gonna have to do a little Nick Beeman stalkathon now. I have to go back and, I
That's
didn't,
what
I
I'm doing
didn't,
right now.
I didn't realize you were old school like me. Like that's a fun thing is like the stuff actually. There was less of it, so it's easier to find when you do find it. Like I think now it's like, oh, I put a track out on this label, and you look up the label, and they have like 12 releases a week. But if you're like even going back 5 or 8 years in electronic music land, when like there were more, it was a little bit more traditional. There were like less releases, and then there were like physical vinyl copies that there were limited amounts of. And so I was the one like running to the record store to be like, let me have this track. I don't care what it sounds like. I have to be one of the the 3 people in Vancouver that have it. So
Yeah. Especially when you have to like crate around your old records and stuff, like
oh my
back in the
god.
day.
Oh, this has been epic. Thank you so much, Nick and Bako. You guys are rad. I love what your insight and advice. We got one more track from Melly, who has been patiently waiting, called Scream in the Night. And they say, I care the most about the energy that comes across in the track and also worry a lot about mix issues. So this will close us out for the jam. And, maybe we'll do this more often. Now that I know exactly the limits of my boundaries, I'll tell you, it's about 4 guests in one panel, just like this, and everything still works. So we now know that I need a second computer if I want to bring more people. So thank you to our guests for both being really cool and be willing to experiment me. And shouts out to Steve from Video Ninja for being our like in-person tech support. Thank you, everybody.
And Samurai.
Whee! And Samurai, you're awesome. Everyone's awesome. Everyone is awesome. All right. Scream in the Night. Wow, Melly, I listen to your stuff a lot, and it's always really, really original. Like you have a super, super creative mind in a world where people are always trying to follow the formula and do this style and this. Your music doesn't really sound like anyone's to me. Under the description, it says, I'm worried it's still a bit harsh. It's definitely harsh. In the beginning, especially, both Baco and I were like resonant, and I actually nudged the volume down a tad because it was a little bit painful. So, again, Sooth, TDR Nova, all kinds of EQs and spectrum analyzers, those are your friends. I will say that once it drops, it sounds like so much more pro and full, but the intro definitely needs work because the intro sounds like you've just started the sketch. Like, okay, I have an idea and I need to put something in here for now and I'll come back to it later. And I think there's a little bit of storytelling missing. Like, I've always noticed that you have a lot of really cool, really well developed like sounds singularly. Like maybe you have like one cool, really detailed sound, but then it's like you've forgotten to sort of open up the rest of the space, like Foley, noise, like stereo things happening. Like I hear a good focus element, but I'm missing like the detail around it. Almost like if you're making a painting and you've just painted like the person in the foreground and you haven't painted like the happy little trees and the mountains and all this stuff. So I would say like, yeah, it is a little bit harsh, but I would really focus on making that first minute sound as tight and as like cohesive as the second part. Personally, I love the crunchy sound that comes in later on. I think that that's super high tech, and just focus, use that as your focus point, and maybe even like some automation or something hinting at it in the intro or something, anything that would provide like sonic storytelling. You know what I mean, Baco?
Yeah, totally. I wouldn't put it any other way in terms of the difference between the first half and the second half. That intro just needs it needs like some atmospheric layers. And I was gonna say that it's similar to art, where like I'm also an artist, where I get really hyper focused on the one thing that I'm doing, and then I'll be like, make this really nice, super intricate, detailed drawing of just one thing, and then there's just nothing behind it. So
it's the horse meme.
Yeah. And the same thing happens to me with sound design. I get lost in like, I'll just be like, oh, I play around with faceplant while I'm trying to make this lead, and then like it'll be 3 hours later and I've just made one sound. So like definitely make sure that you're spreading the love around. And then yeah, man, the sound design though is super cool. Like I don't know what that lead did to offend your mother, but like you crushed the hell out of it. But it was super cool. Yeah, I would also try to find an element from the second part to incorporate into the first part to sort of unify the track. Because right now it also sounds like two separate ideas, but I feel like it totally could be one cohesive whole. So usually bringing something in from one and the other will help.
Oh, definitely. Nick?
So much good feedback here. I don't have much more to add actually, but I really liked the track. I think it had a very retro vibe, and yeah, like some people said in the chat, it made me feel like I was in a 90s arcade game. I really enjoyed it. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Natty?
I mean, my closing thought is it's also just really rare to hear dark synthwave that's actually happy. Most of them just go evil and gloomy. This is like, it follows a lot of the same characteristics, but it's a fun tune. It takes you places, and I really love that.
Amazing.
I love any synthwave that's just outside of the cookie cutter synthwave, because
and I always approve
the
of
sound
that.
design just pigeonholes you so hard that you can't hear more than an hour or two of synthwave before you're like, all right, I've heard it, I got it. Like
Yeah, no, I mean, synthwave is a tough one, but I think when it's done well, it's like super, actually, ironically, it's super current. Like right now, everybody is going crazy for the 80s and for any kind of retro stuff. So definitely, like, I could see people partying to it. You may have to make a version that's a little more DJ friendly. That would be something to think about, because it's like synthwave is a more predictable style, and you've sort of like pulled that into a more abstract kind of arrangement. So if I were a DJ and I was used to my predictable synthwave tracks with like the intro, I might be like, hey, I don't know how to mix this. But this is something that is an old person thing to say, because it seems to me that these days DJs don't really mix the way they used to. So people are
trying to mix dubstep with anything else. Like what?
Good point.
It's just noise. Just put the noise with the noise. You're good.
One thing I wanted to share before we sign off, we have the finals of ILBC season 1. I've been working really hard on this as usual because I love doing this, and I'm so happy that all of you have come with me for the last year to like build and experiment this. And you know, Nick, you've been super instrumental. That's a music pun I like to use. You've been instrumental to this community. Bottom.
It's all about the dad jokes. Come on,
Dad
let's go.
jokes, totally. And I just want to let you know that we are going to stream this live. It is at 9:30 p.m. Central European time because it's in Barcelona, and we're going to have like basically the 3 champions of the Bristol round, the Shinos Tech round, and the Audius round. And we're also going to have some really cool like beat battle stuff, finger drumming showcases. We have a beatboxer. So one thing that you can help us do, we haven't officially launched this until Monday, but basically we are doing a wild card. And to be totally transparent with you, I just didn't have it in me to have another round before, like the timing just didn't work out. Like by the time I was ready to do this, there was only time to have 3, but it's no fun with 3. We need 4. So we've taken the top 4 scoring contestants that did not win the other rounds, and you are going to be able to vote on them. Really, Ryan, he had some stream problems and it was really hard to see his set, so he's actually going to re-record it so that it's in higher resolution, so that'll be up tomorrow.
Let's go, Annie.
Yeah, Annie was so lovely. She was really great. Her round is up there. And then from Bristol, we have drum and off peak. Unfortunately, I wanted to enter the 2 top ones from the Shinos Tech round, but it turns out that they are both busy during that exact date and time. And to be honest with you, I still have to check with the other people if they can make it. But they all said that they were interested in coming back, and they're all super awesome. So it's ilbc.tv/wildcard. And just in general, if you want to know more about the competition, the history of the channel, all these things that we do, ILBC TV is our website. And if you're not already subscribed, please do, because this needs to be updated. That was the last round. But I mean, basically it tells you more about like all the shows we've been doing, who we are. It's basically me and it's Matt Black. You may not see Matt on the weekly streams, but he is basically the godfather of this whole project, and he has been judging it all around. So he will actually be doing a set at the finals. And multi-streaming technology, this has been the bane of my existence for the last year. We love to tell people about it. It's stressful to implement, as you've seen, but when it works, it is golden and is better than Zoom. And college, so this is kind of like where we're going to go in the future. You know, we would like to do more mentoring. We'd like to do more real life workshops and to help people who maybe can't necessarily afford to take classes or equipment. So this is going to be like where we're going. And then for partners, I got to mention, we've had some really super cool support for all of this, and our grand prize is going to include lots of goodies, including a Native Instruments machine. So big ups to all of these people, but especially Native Instruments and Loop Masters have been super supportive. And also, we may be on the front page of Twitch for the finals, so I would love if you would come and join and do some visual fun effects. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Baco. Thank you, Natty, of course. And we're going to do feedback next Wednesday. It'll be a little short because I got to go to the airport, but it will happen. So if you want to get in for next time, you know, we're going to clear and reopen the sheet like literally, I don't know. I'll let Natty do it. He's better with this thing. He's going to reopen it for me. But thank you. Any last words from each of you? Baco?
Yeah, I just started streaming, so check out my stream, same name on Twitch. And other than that, thanks for having me on. It's always fun to be able to crack jokes and judge your music, even though I'm totally not qualified for it. But, you know, what are you going to do?
Amazing. Nick, you have any projects going on? Anything you want to tell anyone?
Well, like I said earlier, I'm working on an album and hoping to get it ready by the end of this year. I've been working on it for almost 2 years now. I'm a very slow worker when it comes to my music, and I tend to like let tracks take their time and sometimes rework them 2 or 3 times before I'm happy. So, but I'm really happy to show you guys one of them that is going to be on the album now. Other than that, I'm really grateful for having me on this show. It was really fun to be on and not just comment on the chat for once. So yeah, it's been fun.
Anytime. And Natty, I will let you give some final thoughts to anyone. Anything else you want to say?
Well, we do actually have one person lined up for Wednesday for coming on.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to come on, we've still got a space or two if you want to recreate this multi-panel experience.
Multi-panel experience. Well, that's it. Thank you for joining us on a happy Sunday. And you know the drill. It's time for our very out of tune